Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Astatara Srimad His Divine Grace is Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Gaura Premanandi. Nice to be visiting a temple again after a while. It's been a while. No, it's okay. It's quite okay. Just 2 comments before I begin. Hearing Amalabhakta Swami's narrating voice again was like thrilling. No, I won't. And can the pujaris, somebody in the pujari department say, what's in Rukmini's little bag? What she got in there? Goodies for Dorcadies. Huh? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 2:19 answers by citing the Lord's version. Very special chapter. Tam priyamanam samupastitam kavim praja visarge nija shasanarhanam Bhavasha ishat smita shochisha gira Priyak priyam prita mana kare sprishan Tam priyamanam samupastitam kavim Prajabhisarge nijashasanarhanam Babasha ishat smita shochisha gira Priya priyam prita mana kare sprishan Ladies, please. Tam unto Lord Brahma, Priyamanam, worthy of being very dear, Samupastitam, present before, Kavim, the great scholar, Praja, living entities, Visarge, in the matter of creation, Nija, his own, Shasana, control, Arhanam, just suitable, Babashe, addressed, Ishat, mild, Smita, smiling, Shochisha, with enlightening, Gira, words, Priyaha, the beloved, Priyam, the counterpart of love, Prita Manaha, being very much pleased, Kade, by the hand, Sprishan, shaking. Translation, and seeing Brahma present before him, the Lord accepted him as worthy to create living beings, to be controlled as he desired, and thus, being very much satisfied with him, the Lord shook hands with Brahma and, slightly smiling, addressed him thus. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The creation of the material world is not blind or accidental. The living entities who are ever conditioned, the Nitya-Baddha, are thus given a chance for liberation under the guidance of his own representative, like Brahma. The Lord instructs Brahma in Vedic knowledge in order to diffuse this knowledge to the conditioned souls. The conditioned souls are forgetful souls in their relationship with the Lord, and thus a period of creation and the process of dissemination of Vedic knowledge are necessary activities of the Lord. Lord Brahma has a great responsibility in delivering the conditioned souls, and therefore he is very dear to the Lord. Paragraph. Brahma does his duty very perfectly, not only by generating the living entities, but also by spreading his party for reclaiming the fallen souls. The party is called the Brahma Sampradaya, and any member of this party to date is naturally engaged in reclaiming the fallen souls back to Godhead, back home. The Lord is very much anxious to get back his parts and parcels, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita. No one is more dear than the one who takes the task of reclaiming the fallen souls back to Godhead. Paragraph. There are many renegades from the Brahma Sampradaya whose only business is to make men more forgetful of the Lord and thus entangle them more and more in material existence. Such persons are never dear to the Lord, and the Lord sends them deeper into the darkest region of matter so that such envious demons may not be able to know the Supreme Lord. So better watch out. Anyone, however, preaching the mission of the Lord in the line of the Brahma Sampradaya is always dear to the Lord, and the Lord, being satisfied with such a preacher of the authorized bhakti cult, shakes hands with him in great satisfaction. So if you want to shake hands with the Supreme Lord, you know what to do now. It's 5 minutes after 8. When does the bell ring? Oh, you don't say that. Okay. Many things, many points. One outstanding one is the final two words of the verse. Kare sprishan, kare by the hand, sprishan shaking. Now many of the senior devotees have probably gone through this exercise a little bit, but there are different relationships with the personality of God, including different Lord Brahmas, just like the Brahma that's in Brahma Sampradaya, in Brahma Samhita. He was a maidservant. And this particular Brahma is a different Brahma because his relationship is friendship. So there are different Brahmas in different universes, and they have different relationships, eternal relationships. That's one point. In the next verse, another point is, in the next verse, Lord Vishnu is going to say to Brahma that Lord Vishnu, has impregnated in the heart of Brahma all Vedic knowledge. And that's a lot of knowledge. And included in all that Vedic knowledge was the knowledge of how to build the universe, which is mind-boggling. I invite you, I challenge you, read 5th Canto Srimad Bhagavatam, chapters 16 through 26, and see if you understand it. That's Vedic cosmology, and it's mind-boggling. It's beyond, an intellectual person's capacity to understand. Although someone may try, but it's beyond their capacity to understand because it's a very, very, very different picture of the structure of the universe. I have some interest in that topic in part because it comes up in questions and answers, and plus I'm just kind of a curious person, like to understand things that are. The universal form appears in the very first section that Shukadeva Goswami speaks. Universal form, Canto 2, Chapter 1. It's the very first question that Vidura asks Maitreya. Please explain. It's not like he didn't know, but it's all. And then the explanation is very different than what's found in Canto 2, Chapter 1. And, Cantos 2 and 3. And then Canto 5. And compare those pictures to the universal form in Bhagavad Gita. And I'm sure you've noticed. They're quite different. So it leaves scratching one's head, questioning, how come it says this over here and says that over there and says something else over there? What's going on? Which is it? Is it this or that or the other one? And the answer is they're all right. Krishna speaking, or the Vyasadeva writing. It's a picture, or Shukadeva Goswami narrating 5th canto. Where did he learn it from? He learned it from Vyasa, etc., etc. So it's Shabda Pramana. It's just a different picture of the same thing. There's different ways of describing that, but there's just different pictures. It's the same thing. It's the same universal form. A different person sees the same thing in a different way. Great sages, not just people with fallible senses. Great sages see the same thing in a different way. And it's perfectly okay. It's the same thing, seen in a different way. There's a verse I've grown to appreciate in Brahma Samhita, text 61. Yadrashi shadha siddhi bhavati tadrashi. That's not text, 61. it says, so it's yadrashi tadrashi. It's like this, so that. Yata tata. I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but I've learned a few things. So yadrashi yadrashi shadha means faith. According to one's faith, siddhi bhavati tadrashi. Siddhi bhavati. Siddhi bhavati. Siddhi, Bhakti Siddhanta translates that as realization. Siddhi bhavati. Realization arises corresponding with one's faith. The same object is seen differently. The same object, like Krishna, or the universal form, or whatever, is seen differently according to faith. And Krishna reveals according to faith. So it's quite okay. And the subject matter, another point, in the verse is the word visarga. And visarga is one of the 10 topics. It's what Brahma does, the sub-creation. Praja visarge. So the emphasis in the verse is Brahma has the qualification to praja visarge, to create living entities. The temporary forms of living, not to create souls, but create the, visarga, the structure of the universe, and then further fill up the universe with living entities of different forms. And quite amazing. One of my favorite little statements of Prabhupada is, let the scientist create one mosquito. And the mosquito can fly in any direction, and it can reproduce itself. Let them create one mosquito. I don't know if it's true, but I heard Bhagavatam Swami say that the engineers that built the Bay Bridge, they studied spider webs. Have you heard Bhagavatam Maharaj say that one? They studied spider webs because spider webs know how to make bridges. And then they made using the technology of spider webs, they learned and built the Bay Bridge. No, the spiders don't go to spider school. How they, so build a spider that can build a spider web. So anyway, what's the knowledge of Brahma to build the universe? Vast. Study Vedic cosmology. What to speak of build one. And how intelligent, how filled with Vedic knowledge is Brahma. So how qualified is Brahma in terms of building the universe? Who can say? Inconceivable. Now that's the emphasis in this verse and the previous verse, because Vishnu wants, and Brahma has this creative impetus that he's invested. He wants to build the universe. And, to build it, you have to have a sanction and blessings and, a lot of knowledge. So the next verse, Vishnu is saying, I have empowered you with all Vedic knowledge. Something like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to Rupa Goswami, or about Rupa Goswami, only I've given the fullness of my mercy. Like, what's that? What's the capacity of someone to receive the mercy of the most merciful? Rupa Goswami's up there. But he was qualified. And he Lord Chaitanya said to Srup Damodar, I saw him as a qualified person, therefore I empowered him. You instruct him further in the science of rasa. This Srimad Bhagavatam is Amala Pramana. It's the topmost literature. There isn't such literature like this. I mean, it's fair to say, it's not just bragging, it's fair to say there's no such literature like this. And of course, Prabhupada is giving emphasis to preaching. Naturally, he's, the world Acharya, invested with potency to spread the teachings give the teachings and spread the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all over the world, starting with the English-speaking parts of the world, and this is his Bhaktivedanta purports, which then have been translated into so many languages and so forth. His vision was the suffering of living entities should be given an opportunity at least to not have to suffer. But how do you not suffer? As long as one is in the material world, how does one come to the material world? As long as one is in the material world, there's suffering. So the Vedic conception of termination of suffering is not just stop desire. That's a Buddhist idea. Stop desire. The root cause of suffering is desire. Solution, stop desiring. Try it. But that's Buddhism. And there's a path to get to desirelessness. Little Buddhism talk for 2 minutes. How do you do that? 2 things. Well, one of them is trendy, and the other one is not. The one that's not trendy is be in the mode of goodness. Compassion, nonviolence, etc. Control of the mind and control of the senses. Mode of goodness. Lifestyle that's the mode of goodness. And then the other is meditation. And the type of meditation is be in the moment. And everybody knows that one. That's the popular one. Be in the moment. Mindfulness. Mindfulness. It made its way into nooks and corners of this world. Mindfulness. I was visiting a college in Chicago last year before last year because of COVID. It was downtown, and we went through a street to get to the university. Big sign, the Mindful Burger. Anyway, the Mindful Manager. It's just marketing, mindfulness. But what mindfulness from the Buddhist conception is very simple. It's called Kshanik Vada, the doctrine that all there is the moment. Past is gone, future doesn't exist. All there is the moment, so be in the moment. Be in the moment, be in the moment, be in the moment. And when you're really good at being in the moment, what's the goal? Go on the other side of the moment. What's that? Nirvana. What's nirvana? Cessation of material existence. You're enlightened. You don't exist. End of story. That's the Buddhist conception. And the Vedic conception, what Brahma Sampradaya is teaching, the Vedas are teaching, and which Buddha rejected, is the root cause of suffering is ignorance. And from ignorance comes ignorant desire, because living entities have desire, comes ignorant desire. And ignorant desire comes ignorant activity, comes suffering. So the solution is knowledge. But what kind of knowledge? There's different kinds of knowledge. And noticing in the first paragraph of the purport, the second sentence, the living entities who are ever conditioned or nitya-baddha are thus given a chance for liberation under the guidance of his own representative, like Brahma. So just a little sharing, because I've been, in morning classes, been covering Uddhava Gita, and it's really profound. So at the end of chapter 10 of Canto 11, Uddhava asks a question. My dear Lord Krishna, could you explain this seeming contradiction, I'm paraphrasing, he doesn't use these words. There's this phrase Nityabadha, and then it says that Nityabadhas can become Nityasiddha, but how is that? Because Nitya is Nitya. It's either this or that. How can you have Nitya both? Paraphrasing the answer, beginning of chapter 11, Krishna says, your question is misleading. Misleading because the soul, like me, is not conditioned. That conditioning is an upadhi. It's a designation. It's not who we are. And for that matter, nitya siddha, depending upon the potency of Maya Shakti. Listen, it's subtle. Maya Shakti has two potencies, according to this section of the Uddhava Gita. One is Vidya Shakti and the other is Avidya Shakti. And they vacillate, sometimes and sometimes, like the world of duality, sometimes and sometimes. So it's not that you get Vidya Shakti and you stay there. Because you have to have shelter of something other than Vidya Shakti. What's that something other? The source. And so then he goes on to say, the internal potency, besides the Maya Shakti, the Antaranga Shakti, inherently is knowledge. So the soul is pure. The soul is neither Nityabadha nor Nityasiddha, although the language is there. So what the purpose of creation is to help the Nityabadha folks come to the stage of not just Nityasiddha, but, eternal associate of Krishna. That's the purpose of creation. We're the people of ignorance, but not just, here's a bunch of, cultivation of knowledge and get higher and higher and higher in the ascending process and you're on top of the mountain. And then you slide down the mountain again because you can't stay there without shelter. So it's a very interesting chapter. And the Brahma Sampradaya teaches it, of course, because the Srimad Bhagavatam is part of, it's the ripened fruit of all the Vedic wisdom and teaching through the bhakti process that ignorance can be permanently, not temporarily, up the mountain by ascending, but permanently dissolved. And here we are, like little people, in touch with this opportunity to achieve that. And Vishnu is saying, next verse, you're capable. You can understand the purpose of creation and you can do it. Here's the knowledge how to do it. Here's the creative potency to do it. Go, Brahma, go. And Prabhupada is saying something similar in his purport here about the followers of Brahma, those who are taking up the cause of Brahma, not the deviating in name only, but in the actual living of the life of Brahma Sampradaya, give the teachings according to our capacity with no adulteration and just give the teachings. And one who does that is dear to Krishna, or in this case, dear to Vishnu. And Vishnu is ready to shake your hand. There's no one more dear to Krishna than such a person. But there's a lot to understand about what's all that about. Just two things, and because it's 8:26. The other day, someone asked a question. Is this deception because we hear just chant Hare Krishna, follow the four regular principles, and go back to Godhead? Then on the other hand, we hear all these conditions. You have to chant like this, and you have to perform devotional service like that, and how are we to process that? I mean, we didn't say is this deception, but that was kind of implied in the question. At least that seemed to be what was implied in the question. And then here's another one. Many of you, probably all of you, have seen that wonderful film that Yadavar and Vishaka made of Prabhupada, the Hare Krishna, the founder of the Hare Krishna movement. One of my favorite little passages is, it looks like Prabhupada's in a television studio and there's this fellow sitting behind his desk like interviewers do, and Prabhupada's seated over here. Swamiji, you came, something like this. Swamiji, you came to America, to the West, and you must have come with a message. What's your message? You know, doors open. Prabhupada could have said anything. At least the part that's in that little clip. Know yourself. 2 words. And then the reporter goes, know yourself. Prabhupada, know yourself. No, then unpack that. That means lots of things, to know yourself. Lots of things, just like chant Hare Krishna, follow the 4 principles. You go back to Godhead. It's a sutra, then within the sutra is so many things. One time I was introduced to somebody at a Rath Yatra some years ago when we could have outdoor Rath Yatras. And I was being introduced, and the person said, I just have one question. What's that? Why creation? 2 words. So here's the why. No, there's second one. Living entities get a chance to mess around, to enjoy independently, and there's a playground, go play in the playground. It's not a nice place, but here it is. And the other is to rectify that mistake, the ignorance. The root of ignorance is to ignore Krishna. It's an opportunity. And the Brahma Sampradaya is to provide that opportunity, and we're being given the opportunity to assist. Primarily, resting upon our founder Acharya's teachings, say Prabhupada's books, and then how to present Prabhupada's books in such a way that the audience that we're trying to present this knowledge can receive it. Sometimes it's just distribute the books. But, sometimes it seems like these days one has to be a little bit creative. Just 2 days ago, I listened to an interview of the devotee in Sweden, Prabhupada disciple. His name starts with a V. I forget his name. Somebody here, Prabhupada disciple? Huh? Who's the one who started in Stockholm? I forget his name. Huh? Bhagavan. Bhagavan said he was with Prabhupada in Australia. Prabhupada said, go back to your native country and start Krishna consciousness, and here's how you should do. Wear Western clothes. Now, that was revolutionary during that period of time. And when he was traveling back to Sweden with Ajit Prabhu, a very wonderful devotee in Australia, because they started the center together, they passed through Germany and they were told, don't do it like that, just distribute books and wear dhotis and shaved heads. So they followed that GBC instruction, but Prabhupada's was, this is really early. Wear Western clothes, grow your hair, and distribute books that way. No, there's different ways of doing everything. But it's just an indication that there's variety, even during Prabhupada's time, of how to present Krishna consciousness with the purpose that it would be received. Okay. Right on time. I think that's a sign to end. So we distribute, but we also have to exemplify what's in the books, because otherwise people will go, the emperor has no clothes, or, you know, you don't live by your teachings. There's words, not complimentary words about people who say something and do something else. So we're to live by what the teachings say as best we can as representatives of the Brahma Sampradaya, and consider the audiences and how to best give those teachings, along with exemplifying them by character. Okay, so it's 8:30. Any discussion? Abrupt ending, but that signal. Comments or questions? Yes. Here comes Bhakta Mike.
Thank you very much. At one point you were mentioning just how do we do it to be able, I understand, how do we do it to be able to understand a deep subject matter like this? And I read this to you from the Brahma Samhita, and you please, I have a question from that too, where it says that the highest devotion is attained by slow degrees by the method for constant endeavor for self-realization.
Yes.
With the help of scriptural evidence.
With the help of what?
The help of scriptural evidence,
Yes.
theistic conduct, and perseverance in practice. So my question right there will be the theistic conduct. The
Theistic conduct. Yes.
Because you was just mentioning right now that traditionally devotees, they go with the devotional clothes, tilak, and everything, but later on, Prabhupada switch.
Theistic conduct means there's principles of Dharma and you don't deviate from the principles of Dharma. You abide by the principles of Dharma. So your attire is not a principle of Dharma. Following the instructions of the spiritual master is a principle of Dharma. And the spiritual master instructs this, it's this. If he instructs that, it's that. Principle of Dharma is follow the instructions of the spiritual master.
Besides that little explanation that you just gave, there are other further theistic conduct?
It just means principles of Dharma. It's not details, it's principles. That's theistic conduct. Prabhupada, we know from Nectar Devotion, there's principles and there's details. You're familiar with that discussion. So the spiritual master may, according to time, place, circumstance, adjust details, but doesn't deviate from principles, because principles is theistic conduct. Is that all right? Okay. Brigopati?
Johnny, thank you much. I really liked your analysis of Buddhism. The past is gone, the future doesn't exist, so be in the moment. So do the Buddhists have is nirvana just a conception, or is there an experience attached to that?
The teaching is that it's an experience. It's the state of going beyond the moment and entering into light, or enlightenment, or nirvana, where any trace of material existence is gone. Now, the next question is, what's that place? But the first is, it's an experience. No, it's temporary, because it's like anesthesia. Because the soul is conscious. You can't stop desire because it's concomitant with the living entity. But under anesthesia, you don't experience desire or anything other than anesthesia.
So are you suggesting that it is a real experience?
Yeah. I mean, consciousness doesn't stop. So what are you experiencing when you're under anesthesia? Have you had anesthesia?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're not experiencing anything. And there's no sense of passage of time either. You've had that experience? Yeah. It's like It's not like sleep. It's anesthetized. And that's what the state is. That's their experience. So it's an experience of that. And then they can attest to the experience when your anesthesia wears out. You don't remember what it was like because you're anesthetized, but you know that it's something other. It was an experience. Jiva Goswami touches on this question in Tattva Sandarbha. And he refutes this other doctrine based on Srimad Bhagavatam's teachings. If you're curious, you can read it. You can look up Shankavada doctrine or Shankavada Buddhism. Twice he touches on it in Tattva Sandarbha. But it isn't yours specifically, it's an experience. Because consciousness doesn't stop. His argument is you know that it happened because you have now something else. Therefore you were something.
Okay, so there is such a thing. It's an experience. Is there a mistake that they think it's the absolute experience?
Yes. It's not absolute. I mean, there are different brands of Buddhism, just like there are brands of everything. And some say there's soul, and some say there's no soul. Buddha was silent. Some say there's soul. Brands of Buddhism today, some say there's a soul. Some say there's no soul. But soul is conscious. That's our Vedic teaching, and Jiva Goswami touches upon it based upon Shastra Praman. There's consciousness, always. So, does that answer your question? Let's see if there's something else. Okay.
Maharaj, at one point you were mentioning that, for example, in the Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam and other books will be something that may appear differently.
Yes.
So I have a question in regards to this verse that I'm going to read to you. And it's from the Srimad Bhagavatam 4:29, where it says that everything happening within time, which consists of past, present, and future, is merely a dream.
Yes.
That's the secret of understanding in all Vedic literatures.
Yes.
Someone reading this verse can easily merge that into impersonalism.
Sure.
Or Voidism like the
Sure.
Buddhists.
Piece of cake. Merge.
Can we hear your point of view from our side more precisely for those practicing Bhakti Yoga?
There's two realms, spiritual and material. Past, present, and future is in this, which is a reflection of that. That is reality. And that has variety. And there's, according to Jiva Goswami, there's a sense of time that's eternal time acting under the agency of Yogamaya, so there's a sense of time. But it's eternal time. Now that's beyond our little binary processor called the mind to think about. It's in another realm. No, impersonalists use that same kind of, talk. Nirvachaniya. You can't explain it. But there is this Vedic and there's a, non-Vedic way of something that's inconceivable. There is a realm. It's consistent in different places within the Vedas, certainly within Bhagavad Gita and other places. There's a spiritual realm that's eternal. And there's detail that Jiva Goswami explaining. There's a sense of passage of time, but there's no passage of time. Just like eternal activity. What's Nitya Lila? We don't have any experience of Nitya Lila because we have experience of time, past, present, future Lila or events. But Krishna has Nitya Lila. It's not double talk. Other question over there.
Thank you. Earlier on in the lecture, it's okay.
Stuck in his pocket. Go ahead.
You were explaining that as faith grows, you get realization.
Yeah.
How do you get that firm faith without first having the realization?
Well, yeah, it's association of those that have that realization. Sadhu Sangha. So, in response to your question, there's a really nice verse, often quoted, where Krishna speaks to Uddhava, and because I'm anticipating the next question, he uses the word, Krishna uses the word yadrichchaya. Yadrichchaya is a really far out word. It's translated as somehow or other, meaning there's no apparent cause, because every effect has a cause, but there's no cause for yadrichchaya. So yadrichchaya sadhu sangha. So a sadhu comes along and gives association. Now, why did the sadhu come along? Yadrichchaya. There's no cause. They're by nature, they're compassionate. They're servants. They're instruments. So they come and they impart. They give their association in such a way that one develops faith. It's intrinsic, and then it awakens in contact with one who has faith. That's how it starts, association. And then it grows through association. And then it grows through association, and it grows through association. And it grows through association. And service, of course. And that, because association, unpack that one. It means you serve. Association doesn't mean just hang out. It means you serve. I mean, that's bhakti. You serve. You do practical activity. So you hear something, and you practically do that something that you hear. And you get some realization. So then you go back to the place you heard from and say, I want more, please. Faith grows. But it starts with yadrichchaya sadhu sangha. And then grows. So keep an association and don't go away from association. However, even if you're online and hearing whatever online, don't go away from association. Anything else? I think we're done. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.